Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Aloha and welcome to the Hawaii Retirement Savings Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today, February the 15th, 2024 at 3 p.m. My name is Bill Kunzman and I'm the Deputy Director of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, and I am the Director of Labor's designee as co-chair of this board. This is a public meeting under Hawaii Sunshine Law, Chapter 92, Hawaii Revised Statutes, which we are conducting in person as well as Zoom, and this meeting is being recorded. To start the meeting and to document in the minutes, I will take a roll call of voting members and then ex officio non-voting members. Remote board members, please know that the advice of the Department of the Attorney General, the chat box has been disabled and you should keep your camera on. So taking the roll, Jesse Kaola Dean.
Present.
Barbara Krieg, she had indicated she was not going to be able to make the meeting today. Andrew Nomura.
Here.
Brian Taniguchi, he is traveling and so he sends his regards and he may not be able to join us today. Karen Yasukawa.
Present.
Director Salaveria. Currently not present, he may join us. He has some other responsibilities. Myself, William Kunzman, I am here. Representative Andrew Takuya Garrett. And Senator Sharon Moriwaki also extends her regrets that she is not able to join us today. I also want to take this opportunity to allow members of the public present to introduce themselves and the organization they represent on a voluntary basis. If there are any attendees who are not alone in the room, please introduce those who are with us. So we'll start here in the room.
I'm Audrey Sugamatsuda, AARP.
The IT person or PSO. Thank.
Michael Moriyama, Department of Attorney General.
And we cannot forget Christine.
Department of Labor, Corporate Secretary.
Is there anybody out there in the virtual land who wants to introduce themselves?
Aloha, I'm Kelly E. Lopez with AARP as well.
Welcome.
Hey everyone, my name is Juliana Christ. I'm a consultant with AKF Consulting. We work with a number of the auto IRA secure choice programs across the country. So just like to keep tabs on what's going on. Thanks for letting us listen in.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, seeing no others, we'll get on to the agenda item, approval of the minutes of December 15th, 2023, which is in your board packet and has been posted online. Are there any corrections to the minutes of December the 15th, 2023, which has been distributed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Our second agenda item is the public comment period for agenda items. We'll take written and oral testimony at this time for agenda items, and we'll also provide an opportunity for testimony as we go through the agenda items. Is there anyone wishing to provide testimony at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is an executive session. This is in regards to personnel to consider the hire, evaluation, dismissal, or discipline of an officer or employee where consideration of matters affecting privacy will be involved pursuant to section 92(5)(a)(2) Hawaii Revised Statutes. This is a discussion of the selection panel progress and the hiring of the executive director pursuant to 389-3 FHRS, which is the statute that provides the authority for the hire of the executive director. Could I get a motion to convene an executive meeting pursuant to section 92(a)(5)(2)?
So moved.
Seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will go ahead and take a roll call vote on this motion to go into executive session. Jesse Kaola Dean.
Approve.
Andrew Nomura.
Yes.
Karen Yasukawa.
Yes.
Director Salaveria.
Yes.
And I myself vote aye. So we will now go into an executive session, which involves deploying a breakout room.
My apologies for being late, guys. Little technical difficulties.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the public friendly.
Okay, so they're in the big graph now, right?
Yeah, those two, and then you can
Join.
join.
Okay. And then I can just put this to the side, because these are unassigned, so they're not in the
Yeah,
big graph.
so if you hit join, it will
Join. Yes. Somebody was trying, oh, there we go.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're back and we are now on agenda number 5, hiring of the executive director. The panel negotiated and extended an offer to the top candidate who, after an extension, rejected that offer during the first week in January. The panel engaged in a virtual discussion with the second ranked candidate during the second week of January. And based on those discussions, decided against making an offer to the second ranked candidates. So the job announcements are still posted on the DLIR's job page, as well as the Department of Human Resource Development's non-civil service job announcements page, because this is in a exempt position that is not civil service. So any comments or discussion?
You know, for the record, Bill, you know, I did get to meet with both candidates. I think we are very fortunate to be able to get, you know, some people with some pretty high qualifications and caliber to be able to apply. I mean, we are struggling with, you know, with again, meeting certain expectations on compensation. But, you know, I'm still hopeful that we can continue to find that right person. But it was heartening to see people with, you know, with some pretty high caliber of qualifications put in applications.
Yes, thank you, Louis. And I wonder myself if the pool that we might get more candidates interested if there was a change to the law, because I wonder if it being an opt-in law also effectively made it more difficult to recruit, because maybe people who would be potentially interested in performing that role of the executive director of a new program might look at Hawaii's program and think that it would be very difficult to succeed with the way that the law is currently written. So is there anybody who wants to, is there any discussion among the board members at this time about this? Any other discussion? Would anybody from the public like to weigh in on this matter? I see Andy.
Yes, aloha, my name is Andy. I'm new to coming to these meetings. I think I should go read the law so that I understand what it is that is expected.
Andy,
Oh.
sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me better now? Okay, I'll speak up.
1 second.
Hold on 1 second. We're trying to adjust our volume on ours.
You can turn on the TV. Yeah. Turn on. Drivers.
Okay, Andy, do you want to try again? I'm sorry.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm new to this meeting and to this whole arena. I'm saying I need to read the law so I really understand better what is going on here. So the thought that I might be having might not mean anything then, but is there no way to have some sort of an interim executive director while you're looking for like the dream one, so that this can get moving forward and some of the basic things can be set out and start getting moving?
So there is that possibility of hiring somebody on a temporary basis of a temporary nature. And one of the suggestions that has been made in the past is to, in lieu of that, perhaps hire one of the other positions to help with the business of the board, to help set things up until such time you had an executive director. And so we do have an agenda item a little bit later on in the agenda on that matter. So in short, the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and move on. Oh, sorry. Kaylee?
I was just gonna mention that I think you, Louis, and you talked about the compensation, and I do think even for perhaps people currently in the state, working for the state that do this type of work, maybe for different types of programs, may not have applied for the opening because of the budgeted amount. And I don't know if that's something you necessarily need to change, but I think just as you saw with some of your other candidates, I think the compensation issue is a factor, even with local candidates. Just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next agenda item is discussion on legislation. There has been two measures introduced into the legislature. They're companion measures. They are HB 2197 and SB 2553 relating to the Hawaii Retirement Savings Act. In a nutshell, these proposals require employers to automatically enroll employees in the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program and allow employees to opt out instead of opt into the program. That's the most substantive change being deliberated upon for the statute. The other suggested amendment to the statute, substantive amendment, involves the definition of covered employer, which aligns with the original purpose of the act to provide a state facilitated payroll deduction retirement savings program for private sector employees who do not have access to employer sponsored plans. So it's more or less a housekeeping amendment to the definition of employer. And you have those measures as part of the board packet, so you can read through the language, or if you had the opportunity beforehand to read through the language.
So what's the difference between the two?
They're both essentially identical measures, so they're companion measures. There may have been slightly different technical amendments made by the drafting agencies in the House and the Senate, but they're essentially identical measures. At this point, both measures have had hearings in their first committees, the subject matter committees, which happen to be labor in both chambers, and they're at the point in the process now where they're going to the last committee in each chamber, which is the money committees, the finance committee and the ways and means committee. So the measures are moving, and from what the department can tell, we haven't detected that there has been any significant objections raised to the amendments in the bill to date.
What happened with the person that was responsible for doing the opt-in in the first place?
The chair no longer.
Whether was it?
The chair, Richard Onishi.
Yeah, so it's no longer part of it.
So
There's only one vote.
So does anybody have any questions about the legislation itself or the process? So the legislature, 60 days, we're about a quarter of the way into the process, I would say. The halfway point is the crossover deadline, which is in about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. If the measures continue to progress through the legislative process, they will receive hearings in their respective chambers by the money committees and then cross over to the non-originating chambers for each bill and go through an identical process after crossover, leading to either enactment or not by the end of the legislative session, which would be at the very end of April. I believe final decking is the last week of April. So one way or another, we should know no later than the end of April whether or not there is going to be any changes to the statute. Any questions or discussion? Did anybody from the public have any questions or want to provide any input, testimony on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next sub-agenda item, which is shall the board support legislative proposals as reflected in these two measures to change the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program statute to require employers to automatically enroll employees in the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program and allow employees to opt out instead of opt into the program. Discussion? Darren?
Technology for that, 1000%.
Any other board members want to weigh in on that?
I'm okay with the board submitting testimony and support.
Okay,
I am as well.
is there a motion to vote on the board supporting changing the statute to opt out instead of opt in?
Seconded.
Seconded. Any discussion? Okay, I'll now go ahead and take the vote. We shall take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Let's see here. In your packets, there is, the Office of Information Practice guidance on the legislative process for boards and commissions. The Sunshine Law requirements of duly posting meetings with agenda 6 days at a time makes it very difficult for boards to weigh in timely on legislative matters. So they have provided 7 different options for boards to do so. 3 of those options involve permitted interaction groups. 1 is specifically for the counties, and 1 is an emergency meeting option. Option number 2 in that guidance suggests that boards consider delegating the authority of up to 2 members of a board to act on the authority of the board to prepare and submit legislative testimony, talk to legislators, and attend legislative hearings in accordance with the board's policy on a particular matter. So the question I posed before the board is, would the board be interested in delegating that authority to the members of the board to represent the board before the legislature on these measures?
Well, I guess the question is, would it be helpful?
I believe so, Louis.
It's definitely helpful. I mean, there are some constricting provisions within the existing Sunshine Law that, you know, make it a little bit challenging, you know, having to, like, you know, only one board member can talk to a legislator at a time versus two people going in. You know, there's definitely, it definitely does allow for it. I know that there are going to be some possible, you know, like sunshine advocates that would not want to do it, but it is a frustrating condition of government under the existing sunshine law that makes it difficult to conduct board business. So as a member of multiple boards in government, I would support it myself, but if up for a vote, I would vote aye.
I hearken back to what Senator Moriwaki had to say last time. You know, she had mentioned about being a legislative chair, and that she felt it was more powerful when people from the boards were designated or came before the committee to advocate for legislation from, I think her example was the EUTF, which is the Employees Medical. I did forget to mention, there is one other option, and that's to delegate it to staff, but we don't have staff, so it's not really an option, so. If that's something the board is interested in, we can definitely, I mean, I don't know if there's any board members who would like to volunteer. I would certainly be willing to volunteer as the co-chair to be one of those two people.
No, I cannot do it. I work.
Yeah, but
I work.
you're in the business.
I'll coach you.
It is a commitment. I mean, it is definitely a commitment. But
Lot higher than mine.
Chair,
I'll coach. I work.
can the member of the public speak up?
But
Yeah.
in a minute, Kelly, we'll ask for public input after the board discusses.
Because I was gonna say you should do it, Louis.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense for one of the chairs, and since Bill has so graciously offered to be one of the chairs to do it, that you know, maybe another person from who's not an ex officio would be good. Kelly, stop volunteering me for stuff. But thank you for your vote of confidence, Kelly.
Okay, so, is any other board members present here interested in? Otherwise, it says up to two, so you can have one.
So Bill, I mean, to that point, I mean, I think the issue is whether or not we would support this bill going forward. Whether or not we actually execute on it is subjective to whether or not somebody would be willing to volunteer. But you know, if this bill doesn't pass, we can't do it anyway. If this bill passes, we just have the ability to do it if we so choose, and if we have enough people that would be willing to volunteer, and essentially become like a legislative committee, like a standing legislative committee of the board. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Just because we support it doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it.
Keola, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Are we required to identify the individuals on the PIG if we are wanting to have this duo act under our delegation?
Yes. So if you wanted to do the pig route, that would be the whole pig process, so we'd have to have a meeting and establish the purpose and the scope, identify the individuals, and then have a subsequent meeting to vote on it. And at that point, then you could have a pig also perform that role.
No, if we're talking about the delegation of the two board members,
That's not,
Two.
that's not paid.
Yeah, that's not a pig, sorry.
Ah, okay, thank you for that
I
clarification.
think Keola's question was whether or not those two board members have to be identified.
Yes,
We do have to identify by name. not-
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Can we identify individuals who are not in this current meeting?
That's what happens. when you-
Unfortunately, I don't think that would fly. I don't know, I defer to the AG, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the board can delegate it to whoever, the two people, they can identify whichever two people they want. I don't know if the people not present would appreciate it, but by statute, you could do it.
Brian,
I think Barbara would be good.
Barbara would be great. too.
Yeah. I think Barbara would. And you just twist her on.
anybody, any other board members? I mean, I guess the suggestion is to identify a board member who's not present to be delegated this authority to. Which seems kind of weird, but, that's up to the board.
Well, I think, I mean, even if it was just you, Bill, but then, right, you could act on behalf of the board in that particular case, right?
Yes,
I think that's the issue at hand is whether or not it's one or two. It's the ability of whoever is going to be designated to be able to speak on behalf of the board. And if the board so chooses to allow you the the authority to speak on behalf of the board, because the thing is, because we don't have an executive director. Normally in circumstances, we would delegate this authority to the ED to be able to speak on our behalf, but in the absence of one, maybe identifying, you, Bill, as the board spokesperson is appropriate.
So you said up to two.
yes,
So for the first meeting, let's say it's just you, and then we could come back and have another board meeting where someone on the board might want to go with you, that would be allowable.
yes, it would require another board meeting.
Yeah, well.
We could
that's
do a
the question
virtual
is,
for one item on the agenda, right?
We could do it quick, of
Yeah.
course, we have virtual meeting options nowadays.
Mhm.
Keola?
I'm wondering, I heard some of the discussion about Brian and, would it, if we were to delegate to Brian and Bill, would that, and then let's say that Brian's not available and Bill's the only one who's able to go. I mean, I can't imagine Brian would be upset if we, identified him as one of the two.
I wholeheartedly advocate and support that idea.
Right?
I would do that.
Any other discussion by the board?
Since he was also there and
Yeah.
part of the bill to get this to where it's at, right?
Yeah,
So he has history as to why it got to be where it's at,
He's
which
got
should
more-
help us
Got a lot more contacts.
for sure.
institutional knowledge,
She'll probably allow him in. to speak then.
yes. Yes. And I guess if we were to nominate a board member and they were to strenuously object, then they could choose just not to do it and you could meet and see if another board member.
Yeah.
So you need a motion to,
Well,
Nominate Bill and Brian.
I'll second that motion.
I'd like to, take this opportunity to see if we have any members of the public who would like to provide any input testimony at this time.
Okay. I just want to, and not to put you two on the spot, but I think it's good to have someone with some technical expertise, especially in the area of retirement savings. So that, we got Bill, and that's great because you understand you also have the institutional knowledge and everything, plus you understand the bureaucracy of the state. But having that financial and technical expertise sometimes be very helpful if there's such a question raised by the legislator, so. To put you two on the spot, but that's where you or Keola would also be advantageous to have to complement, the company bill. That's just a comment.
Of the two, Aaron's one.
But actually,
He has more time.
Is there any other discussion? Anybody else like to provide input?
Bill, this is Kaylee from ARP. You know, I think hopefully at this point, the bill in its current form is really administrative housekeeping, I would say. The degree to which it's being changed from opt-in to opt-out is significant, of course. But everything else, it's pretty, I don't see it being very controversial, and so in its current form. I think what the board might want to consider is if the bill changes drastically, whether you're going to want to have the board reconsider how it engages on the legislation. The hope is that it remains, you know, fingers crossed, fingers and toes crossed, it's going to remain the way it is. So that's just another thing to think about. I mean, that's a situation you hope you don't have to address. I'll say it that way.
Okay. So board, do we have any further thoughts on this particular matter or?
In the case that Kelly was talking about, I think Brian would.
So, could I ask for a motion, regarding the board delegating authority to up to 2 members to represent the board before the legislature?
Bill, I just have one housekeeping sort of issue is, so the board, approved the opt-in versus opt-out option. Just to be clear as to what you can testify to and talk to legislators about, would you want them to also adopt the, change in the covered employer language?
We could.
I mean, just so that it's clear, that whoever gets designated has the authority, should this come up, you know, legislators have questions. It's clear that you have the authority to address both, proposed amendments.
So
Discussion? Do we get a motion to approve of the housekeeping amendment?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, would any members of the public like to provide input on that matter? Of also approving the board, approving of the housekeeping, fixed to the definition of employer? Seeing none, we'll take a voice vote. All members in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. So back to the board delegating authority to 1 or 2 members to represent the board before the legislature. Do we have a motion?
So move to, approve delegating authority to Bill and Brian as members of the board to speak on behalf of the board to the legislature.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, board? And anybody from the public like to provide any testimony at this point? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. We'll again go with the voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Bill and a surprise, Mr. Taniguchi will now be able to represent the board before the legislature on this particular matter. Okay, so our next item, I'm sorry, is the budget, and In your board packet, you'll see actually, the report that we got from our Administrative Services Office, which is our fiscal unit in the department. And in that report, it shows you the general fund appropriation and how much has been spent so far this fiscal year. That expense report reflects the money that was spent to, as part of the recruitment process that we reported last time to bring 2 candidates here, and does not record any other expenses at this point. I did learn from ASO that our Attorney General has provided 5.6 hours of legal services to the board this year, but we have not received the bill, so to speak, from the Department of the Attorney General before this agenda was set and the board packet was made available, so that should be reflected at a future meeting. I don't know what the charge per hour is, but I think it's probably not a large amount altogether. So. Any questions or discussions, board members? Anybody from the public want to provide any testimony on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is hiring and the program specialist recruitment. So as you recollect, board, you did approve a position description, which is required for the as part of the process to bring on staff. The board needs to approve the job description, and the board also actually needs to approve of the candidates selected. I had asked Michael if the board could hire the position and not the person, and the answer is you need to hire a person and not a position, even for the 89-day temporary position, because of the way the statute reads, where it says the co-chairs may hire with the approval of the board. So the board is required to meet and approve of any person to work for the retirement savings program. So since the position description was approved at the last meeting, we did go ahead and do what we needed to do internally to put that position out, and we posted that position on the website today, as well as at the Department of Human Resources Development's non-civil service website, so that position as a temporary position is currently open for recruitment to try to find a person to help the board with its business and operations. Previous discussions had involved to hire to wait for the executive director to come on to hire the permanent staff. And so until such time as there was a permanent executive director, the suggestion had been to maybe hire one of the other staff on a temporary, non-permanent basis. So that is what we did. We followed through on the department's end, and we did put that position out for recruitment as an 89-day. Is there any discussion about that, board members? Okay. Is there anybody from the public who would like to provide testimony on this matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is announcements. Does anybody on the board have any announcements? Well, seeing none. Okay, well then I believe we're done and we can adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone. I will let Brian know about his new hat.
You need to make a motion to adjourn, Chair.
Yes. Do I have a motion to
I
adjourn?
I will send you a copy of Robert's Rules of Order very soon.
I need that. I'm getting practice here. Thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you, everyone.
Right, just to get incentive to attend meetings, you know, because you get appointed for things when you're not there to